answering ChatGPT's top 10 questions about how to be able to get into a clinical psychology doctoral program. This is Brian. Let's do this thing. What's up, Navigating Academia family? This is your buddy and personal academic mentor, Dr. J. Phoenix Singh, and my number one buddy, the ultimate employee of Publication Academy, Brian Angus. Brian's gonna be helping me out today, and Brian, are you ready?
I am ready.
It's gonna be great. So what we're gonna do, guys, is Brian is going to ask me ChatGPT's top 10 questions for undergraduates interested in getting into a top clinical psychology doctoral program. Now, as Brian knows, we used a very simple prompt. Brian, can you read the prompt?
Act like an undergraduate student who is interested in getting accepted into a top clinical psychology doctoral program. I am an expert consultant who will help you get into such a program. Ask me a series of 10 questions about how to get accepted into a clinical psychology doctoral program.
Awesome. Okay, so I have no idea what these questions are. As Brian knows, I have not seen them. So Brian's gonna go ahead and ask one at a time, rapid fire, and I'm gonna go ahead and give you the answers. Brian, number one.
What are the general requirements for applying to a top clinical psychology doctoral program?
All right, so when it comes to getting into a top program, it's really important to take into consideration, are you adequately prepared in terms of the coursework that you've taken? Usually, and I've certainly seen this particularly the last application cycle, as is Brian, that usually you need at least 18 credit hours in psych programs. And we're talking about the basics: intro psych, social psych, developmental psych, which sometimes they refer to as like lifespan psych, right? Abnormal psych, and then a whole bunch of kind of other courses as well. So this is one piece. And then we've got the 8 things that I refer to as kind of really the 8 keys to getting into these types of programs. First, we have the 5 lies, the 5 things that you must have, and you have to have them all, but only having those 5 will not get you into a top program. And these 5 are median or higher GPA when it comes to the programs that you're interested in applying for, median or higher test scores, like the GRE, right? And in terms of the programs you want to apply for, 3 killer letters of recommendation, practical experience, like a clinical internship or volunteer position, as well as research experience, at least 6 months in a lab. If you have those 5, you have to have them all. You're still not going to get in, sorry, right? 3 other things, though, that can really help give you a killer edge. Number 1, conference presentations, particularly a conference paper, otherwise a conference poster. No undergraduate symposia at your university do not count. I'm so sorry. Okay? Second, peer-reviewed journal articles. Oh my God, if you can get 1 or more peer-reviewed articles, you are made in the shade, my friend. And last but not least, number 3 is personal connections. Particularly if you're applying to a PhD program, personal connections with your target supervisor are everything and will help you to be able to get in. So if you have all those things and you add some critical application materials like your personal statement, your diversity statement, an amazing CV, and then of course you crush the interview, congratulations, you're getting into grad school. Brian, number 2.
Number 2. How important are grades and GPA in the application process?
There you go, kind of overlaps, yeah. Right? So I'll tell you, remember, it's one of the 5 lies. Now, people always ask me, Dr. Singh, what is the right GPA for me? If I have a GPA of 3.2 or 3.5 or 3.7 out of 4.0, is that sufficient? And really, guys, the best thing that you can do is to be able to go to the admissions data for any APA-approved program that you're interested in applying to. If you don't know how to be able to find those, don't worry, there's other videos on the channel that'll teach you how to do it. And I just want you to take a look for the last 2 to 3 years, and I want you to be able to take a look at what is the median, sometimes they only have the average, what are you gonna do, right? GPA for the incoming cohorts, all right? And again, all you need is that or higher. Having a great GPA, if you have a 4.0, the other one is a 3.7, and has 3 publications, sorry, Charlie, 3 publication McGee is getting in, all right? Not you. So grades matter, but they don't matter too much when it comes to these applications. Brian, number 3.
Number 3. What kind of experience should I have in the field before applying to a clinical psychology doctoral program?
Fantastic. So here what we're talking about is clinical internships or volunteer positions. Could also just be a job that you get, like a summer job. Some people decide to, go and become these behavioral health technicians. They're working in a hospital. They're working in a clinic. For some people, this is something like a text line or a chat line. This could be something like a hotline for domestic violence survivors. It could be something as simple, though. A lot of people contact me, they're like, Dr. Singh, I don't know how to be able to get one of these internships or positions. So long as you are dealing with a vulnerable population where the likelihood of mental health problems is higher, you're basically good to go. So for example, you can volunteer at your local old folks home, right? Where you're going to see cases, even though it's very unfortunate, of Alzheimer's, dementia, and so forth. And also you're going to deal with things like individuals as well as their family members who unfortunately are in a deep state of grief, of bereavement, and so forth, these end of life sort of issues. Could also be working at a local food pantry. Anywhere that you go, a homeless shelter, these things will still be sufficiently relevant for you if you just can't find any other way to be able to get that kind of experience. But I recommend at least 6 months of clinical experience before you apply. So what that means is that if you are starting a position, a clinical position, after your application deadline, which is usually October to December of the year, that's going to be a little bit problematic. There's still ways that we can frame it if you and I work together, right, to be able to apply, but it's one of these things where that's a bit of a challenge. Awesome. Right, number 4.
Is research experience important in the application process?
At least 6 months, that's what we need. People ask me all the time though, Dr. Singh, I really want to go into this particular area of psychology. I want to go into forensic psychology, but the only thing I can get a lab assistantship in is developmental psychology, working with kids. I don't want to work with kids. I want to work with adults, right? So, what do I do? Well, honestly, it really doesn't matter. When I was an undergraduate, I had all kinds of research experience. I was in a behavioral genetics lab studying haplotypes and polymorphisms. I don't even know what those things are, Brian, right? But I was still a research assistant, and I got amazing experience working in these different labs at Yale, at Tufts, at a variety of different universities, and those things positioned me well. Why? Because it showed that I had a dedication to the creation of new knowledge, and that dedication to scholarship, that perception, is really what these supervisors and admissions committees are looking for. Number 5, Brian.
How important are letters of recommendation in the application process?
Letters are critical, and they're one of the opportunities that you have to stick out, and people suck at this. Why do they suck? Because really what you need to consider is what unique things, what unique information are these letters contributing? And usually we're all a little bit scared, I admit that I was as well, to be able to talk to our letter writers and say, hey, listen, this is what I really need this letter of recommendation to say. We're not writing the letter, keep in mind, even though some of my applicants in the past, they've said, yeah, I've been asked to write the letter, right? And then for the person to just sign off on it. So I guess sometimes that does happen. But usually what I want you to do is to be able to build out this thing that I call your greatest hits list, right? I want one person to talk about you as in terms of your academic background, one in terms of you with regards to your research background, and one of you in terms of your clinical background. All right, the person who's talking about your clinical background, your bedside manner, and so forth, they are not going to mention anything about your academic performance or your research performance. Same thing with the research person, never talking about your GPA or academic awards or your clinical experience, and your academic writer not ever mentioning anything about peer-reviewed journal articles or about your clinical experience, all right? Make sure these letters say different things. Super important. Number 6.
How should I prepare for the GRE to maximize my chances of acceptance?
If you need to be able to take the GRE, by the way, even if you don't need to take the GRE, take the GRE. It'll make you stand out. And if you get a terrible score, just don't submit the GRE score. That's fine, but it'll help you stand out. By the way, if they say don't submit it, we will not look at it. I want you in your CV to put it next to your GPA, and I want you to mention your personal statement, right? I want you to think about it like a court case, right? Defense attorney says something, prosecutor says objection, right? Gets sustained by the judge. They tell the jury, you can't take that into consideration, all right, when it comes to making a decision. We're human beings. We heard it, right? We're probably still going to take it into consideration, all right? So that's the reason to still put it in there. If you do, though, need to take the GRE, I want you to take a military approach to this. I've got a 3-month program that I put applicants through. So if you need to apply, get in touch with me. Or you need to do it, need to do the GRE, get in touch with me, right? So 3 months is what it's going to take. We're going to have military-like precision, and we're going to use everything in terms of psychological principles to be able to max out your likelihood of doing great on that test. I don't know about you, I suck at taking tests. I'm very bad at standardized testing, but I was able to get an exceptional score on the GRE, even though I got a terrible score on the SAT, right? I was able to do very well on the GRE because of using this 3-month program. Just make sure you take it very seriously. Even if you're good at test taking, don't go in last second, just expecting that everything is going to be fine, all right? So that's the GRE, right?
What should I look for in a potential clinical psychology doctoral program?
So in a clinical psych doctoral program, obviously we need to decide PsyD versus PhD. Watch the video on the channel for that. I think it's called PsyD versus PhD. All right, so make sure you watch that for kind of the key differences that are there. But I want you to take into consideration more than anything, a few key factors. Number one, if it's a PhD program in particular, the supervisor, as well as how connected they are. Are they publishing? Where are they publishing? Are they publishing with students? And so forth. Also, access to grant funding. Anything having to do with money in terms of what you'll be able to do during grad school, whether or not it's possible even to get funding at the same program to be able to do a postdoctoral fellowship before you're applying for tenure track positions or industry positions. I also want you to think about geographic proximity to protective factors like your friends and your family and things that you love to do. If you're in the middle of a city and you love the outdoors and hiking and these things, probably not the right place for you, especially for the next half decade or more. So take these things into consideration when it comes to choosing a program. Also look into things like the nature and number of rotations, as well as how comps, which are comprehensive exams, how many, when do you have to pass them, and so forth. Read the PhD or the PsyD manual of the department's program, all right? If you can't get it, contact whoever the admissions committee chair is and ask them for it, especially after you've already been accepted. And we got videos on the channel for that as well. Next one, Brian.
What are we at, number 8?
Number 8.
How should I go about selecting potential faculty advisors for my research interests?
All right, this is huge, particularly if you're in the PhD programs. But regardless, this person is going to be the keys to the kingdom in terms of the person that you're going to be accountable for and the person that you're going to be speaking with most in a gatekeeping mechanism for a half decade of your life. And if you're young, if you're in your early to mid 20s, that's like 25% of your life, right? That you're going to be spending with that individual in, I wouldn't say a parental role, but certainly a mentor role. You got to take a look for things like your goodness and fit with their personality. Again, we're really looking for people who are actively publishing and actively applying for grants, especially in PhD programs. But they should not just be publishing, but publishing with their students. Look at their CV. I want you to go through that thing like you're a freaking bespectacled ninja, all right? Read through that thing and make sure you know everything that they're up to, especially when it comes to something like grant funding. Don't just take a look at essentially the funding that they have right now, because I also want you to take a look at the dates of that funding. If you are really passionate about the work that they're doing right now, but that grant funding is coming to an end, you can make the tacit assumption that you are not going to be working on that project, okay? And if you are, you're going to be working with data that's already been collected from it. Something important to be able to take into consideration. Right, number 9.
What can I do to stand out among other applicants?
Fantastic. We mentioned this in our answer to number 1. 3 key things. Number 1 is personal connections. Number 2, peer-reviewed publications. Number 3, conference papers and posters. Remember, at the largest conference you can get into. So something, for example, like American Psychological Association, APS, or a division of APA. For example, for me, it's Division 41, American Psychology Law Society. If you can get those 3 things and really stand out, this is the name of the game. Personal connections, I am not talking about sending an email to the person who you want to be your supervisor. I'm talking about meeting that person intentionally in person, right, on multiple occasions. I want you to spend a minimum of 12 to 18 months building and nurturing that relationship. You need to throw some skin in the game in terms of spending some money to be able to get on a plane, go and visit that person. It can really make you stand out and make you worth it. If this is something where you're applying, right? If Brian's applying, I want Brian to be the only Brian who that individual has eyes for. They're going through 120 plus applications at top programs a year per spot. It's insane, guys, right? But when they see Brian, without even looking at the last name, they're just like, Brian, I knew Brian was going to be submitting this thing. I love me some Brian. And so because of that, I'm going to keep an eye out for this and automatically shift them off to whatever the next round is of the application cycle. Last one, Brian, talk it to me.
Are there any common mistakes that I should avoid in the application process?
Ooh, this is a difficult one. Common mistakes. Okay, in the personal statement, right? So let's talk about application materials, right? In the personal statement, that thing, it's all about structure. Never under any circumstances, it breaks my heart to say it. Talk about, I just want to help people. I have a heart for people. I'm compassionate for people. I want to change the lives of people. It's a beautiful thing, and I totally agree with it. Do not mention in the personal statement, okay? This is not a chance to be able to be sappy in these things. I'm sorry to say that emotional language really is not going to help you out in these sorts of situations. Also, never mention more than one supervisor, no matter what. If they say mention at least 2 supervisors, I want you writing a whole paragraph on one supervisor, and at the very end, having a throwaway sentence that says something along the lines of, also of interest is, Dr. Johnson's work on such and such. And that's it. All right. Dr. Johnson will never accept you, and you just spent a whole bunch of words talking about how amazing the first supervisor is. All right. Supervisors in general, they really want you to choose them, that one person, not to believe that there's multiple people in that department that are going to absolutely love you and love the stuff that you're doing. All right. So, diversity statement. Don't only talk about what makes you diverse, also talk about how you're going to respect the diversity of everybody else in your cohort. In other words, not just in the classroom, but outside of the classroom as well. How are you going to be an ally to individuals from historically marginalized or underrepresented populations? All right. In your CV, insanely well structured. This is not a resume. Every year I see people who think it's a resume and they have a 1-page CV or, front and back page CV. This isn't going to work. Also, make sure you don't include stuff on your CV that is irrelevant to what you're applying for. Do I care that you ran the Boston City Marathon 5 consecutive years and that you beat everybody? Yeah, I think that's great. Don't put it on your CV though, unless you're going to be running away from your supervisor as fast as you can, which I hope is not the case, all right? And if you follow the tips on your channel, it won't be you, okay? So that's what we've got though. Those are the 10 questions. Brian, my man, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace. Thank you so much for stopping by, everyone. It's a pleasure to have you here as always. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more in this series on navigating academia, please click on one of these links over here to be able to view more original content. I hope to see you there.